The President. Good morning. Let's continue with the motion on enhancing regulation of the safety of construction works. Ms. Lam So-wai. Thank you, President. I speak in support of Mr. Gary Zhang's motion on enhancing regulation of the safety of construction works and all of the amendments. How much does a life worth? Well, this is the question that is raised very often when people see the penalty handed down on construction accidents. I think that given the accidents that we've seen recently, it shows that the penalty is not deterrent enough. I think that the government should review the OSH ordinance regularly. President, I noticed that in recent media reports, the LWD said that they will conduct special enforcement operations and issued 4 suspension notices to a construction site at Central and Western District and carried out 5 enforcement actions and prosecutions. All these actions were often taken out only after accidents have happened. Why don't we do it early? The consequence of such delay in action is life being lost. Even when the penalty is deterrent enough, it's difficult for us to prevent accidents altogether. Is there ways for us to do it better? First, some frontline workers have been in the industry for a long time and they are overconfident. They usually ignore OSH regulations. According to a report in 2023 relating to OSH, 452 interviewees, well, among them, only 10% secure their lanyard at a safe position, 30% secure their locks at random places, and some of them said that they do not secure their locks anywhere. This shows that the workers lack OSH awareness. The CIC published a manpower projection, and given the manpower shortage, we think that the OSH accidents will happen even more often. Given the shortage of manpower, inexperienced workers have to take up work that they're not familiar with. Given the labor importation scheme, how often do accidents happen with imported labor? Compared to local workers, imported workers may need time to adapt to the local environment, and they need time to pick up their skills. There could be language barrier that affect effective communication among them and the management as well as other local workers. And this gives rise to increase in accident risk. President, the safety of construction works does not only have to do with the life and health of the people, but also the development of our city. With a good safety culture and system, we can improve the image of the industry and enhance safety. In order for us to solve the problem, we need the government, the industry, and the workers to all work together. On the level of policy, the government should not only step up patrol when accidents happen. They should increase the number of surprise inspections. They can learn from Singapore. They have a mechanism to mandate the contractors to check their equipment and machinery regularly. Also, there are quite a number of INT products on the market. For example, smart helmet, smart robotics. All these can reduce the burden of the workers and minimize risk. This will also help the management have a grasp of what's happening at site. We should also consider implementing 4S in private construction sites. Lastly, I hope that the government will work with the industry to nurture a OSH culture, for example, by extending the number of hours that workers have to learn before they can be granted a green card, for example, by extending it from 7.5% to 2 to 3 days. The government can also consider creating award schemes. President, I so submit. Mr. Ngaman Yu. President, one industrial accident is one too many. Construction industry as a high-risk trade, the number of accidents is worrying. Although in 2023 we amended the Occupational Safety and Occupational Health Miscellaneous Amendments Bill, we raised the penalty and imprisonment term, but in the first half of 2024, there were still 1,443 accidents. Since the collapse of bamboo scaffolding at Kai-Tak, resulting in injuries of 11 workers, at LANTIN site, there was an excavator that rolled down the hill. The noise barriers were destroyed as a result, and injuries followed. In this year, we saw a number of accidents, and that was heartbreaking. As a result, starting from the 20th this month, the LWD carried out surprise inspections on high-risk procedures such as lifting operations. Mr. Lam Chun-sing and I went to construction site for a surprise inspection together with LWB to look at the safety situation at site, and at the site that we visited, a suspension notice was issued. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Labor Department for their efforts on OSH education and construction site safety. I'd like to also take this opportunity to remind supervisors and workers that they should step up inspection of their site, implement OSH-related regulations to make sure that all work process comply with the ordinance and regulations. The government have stepped up enforcement recently, but there's still room for improvement. There are safety guidelines and regulations in place, but given the complicated work process, some management and supervisors ignore the rules. The OSH awareness of the workers is often not sufficient. The safety training that they have to undergo is sometimes not enough. A lot of workers don't comply with safety regulations. As it's nearing the Chinese New Year, a lot of people are trying to rush to complete their projects. As a result, their OSH awareness may be lowered. As to how we can enhance safety management, I have a few comments. First, the construction industry is always seen a lot of accidents and fatalities. The government must step up enforcement and patrol, asking the trade to manage the risk. The government should also consider introducing a blacklist mechanism and mount patrol against construction sites with accidents more often. The government should also step up publicity and promotion, enhancing OSH awareness of the people. The government has rolled out this construction INT fund and the 4S labeling scheme to encourage the industry to adopt 4S. But the usage rate of 4S in the industry is still low. I hope that the government can take the lead by applying 4S in public works projects such as smart helmet, GPS trackers, and distance sensors to make sure that workers can work at a safer environment. Lastly, the government should regularly review labor-related ordinance and code of practice and make amendments when necessary. The government should also brief the employers about the latest ordinance and guidelines. President, the OSH is not only the responsibility of the employers but also the workers. So on top of reviewing the ordinance and stepping up patrol, I hope that everyone in the society will come together to create the right OSH culture so that the lives of the workers can be protected. Ms. Doreen Kong. President, I speak in support of Mr. Gary Zhang's motion, and I thank the other members for moving the amendments. As Hong Kong is trying to attract foreign capital, regulating our construction procedures would enhance our image. For foreign investors, a place with the right regulations, codes of practice on construction is attractive. As long as we can implement our regulations and ordinance well in a construction industry, then foreign construction equipment manufacturers will be more willing to set up their presence in Hong Kong. However, if we see a lot of construction-related accidents, and if the government's regulations are not deterrent enough, this will undermine the reputation of the local construction industry. We should step up regulation and monitoring of the construction industry. We should improve regulations and ordinances relating to OSH and construction. Recently, we've been seeing a lot of accidents, and main contractors often don't pay their subcontractors. We have a lot of public housing projects that are going on, and we need a large number of workers for us to work on the Northern Metropolis project. I think that the government should create a comprehensive OSH ordinance and regulations. We must have the OSH ordinance and guidelines cover every work process in construction. The mainland has a comprehensive monitoring system. The relevant departments have clear delineation of responsibility. They have formulated a comprehensive set of regulations and ordinance on construction and OSH. Take Siu-hung City as an example. For minor works that don't need permits, they have a clear mechanism on it. For Japan, in terms of regulation of construction sites, they have a labor and hygiene ordinance and so on, as well as work process guidelines. Japan actively engage robotics in their construction sites, as well as 3D printing and advanced technology alike. They also subsidize their SMEs. They also subsidize a lot of different robotics for their application and construction sites. This alleviates the manpower burden. Hong Kong is a highly dense city, and we lack land resources. Compared to mainland cities in Japan, our construction site is smaller. So as we are connecting with the rest of the world, we must be innovative and formulate a construction system that is right for us. When the government is relying on the construction site to contribute to our economy, they must have the right regulation.
Professor William Wong. President, we have seen recently a number of industrial incidents. In the middle of this month, a construction site of a hospital in Kai-tak has seen 11 workers being crushed under the scaffoldings. I think Gary Zhang's motion has given us a great opportunity to talk about how we can prevent industrial accidents from happening. One is more than enough, but we have seen more than one. In fact, in the construction industry, it's the highest with industrial fatalities. We have seen accident rates of multiple industries go down last year, but the construction industry has seen a year-on-year increase of 3.3% in the number of industrial injuries and fatalities. We now have various technologies we can make use to reduce the accident rate in construction sites. The Development Bureau and the Construction Industry Council have launched the 4S, all public works projects with value exceeding $30 million have already been using 4S. Making use of technology is a good starting point, but for public and private projects, we should make sure there are safety measures. So the government should try to promote the use of 4S in private construction sites as well. We need to make sure there is comprehensive safety protection. That would mean prevention. We can make use of digital twins, the technology. We can also use BIM. With digital twins technology, not only can we enhance efficiency, it can also identify early on potential hazards and issue alerts if necessary. So one can adjust the design, and that will protect workers. The digital twins technology not only will construct the structure virtually. After works have commenced, engineers can make use of IoT with the use of sensors and internet connection. They can monitor in real time the construction progress in the digital twin. And they can identify potential hazards in the construction process. So I urge the government to promote the use of such technology in infrastructure projects, especially in the loop, to enhance safety and efficiency. Another prevention approach would be to screen out those that do not have a good safety performance. In Singapore, they actually have a platform where people can look up companies' track record in safety performance that ensures transparency. The government can develop a similar platform in Hong Kong. It would help citizens monitor the safety performance record, and it can also act as an indicator for government's selection of partners for projects. I so submit, President, speaking in support of the motion and amendments. Mr. Andrew Lam. I thank Mr. Gary Zhang for proposing the motion so that we have an opportunity to talk about how we can enhance safety of construction works. In 2023, we have amended OSH legislation to increase the penalties. It has been in place for a year or so, but we have not seen a decrease in number of accidents. In 2024, we have an accident rate of 60.3. In 2023, it was 26.1. In 2022, 29.1. And one accident is more than enough. We have seen industrial accidents maintained at a figure of around 3,000. So we have not seen the OSH legislation amendments curing the situation. What is happening here? The legislation would only be effective in the sense that it provides punishment, but it does not prevent the problem from happening. We need to actually change the deep-rooted culture of the construction industry. Various other members have also talked about fostering a culture, and I very much agree, because without a culture, it is hard to really bring change. In 2023, we had 20 fatal industrial accidents according to the government's figures, and 9 of them involving falling from height. 3 involves electrocution. 2 of those involve people trapped between objects. For the 9 cases with falling from height, it is because workers did not secure their lanyards to secure points, and there was no proper fencing, and thus people fell from height. So we have seen workers neglecting the necessary protective measures, and it also shows that workers lacked awareness. And indeed, many of those in the trade have conveyed that workers often did not secure their lanyards at secure points, or they did not do it altogether. Some had advised them to do the right thing, but they just ignored it. So people stopped telling them what to do. If workers are willing to risk their lives, what more can you do, really? Every day I saw people jaywalking, and people of different age groups. So should you punish their spouses, their family members, or friends to resolve the problem? So you have told them what to do, but they don't really do the right thing. We have a safety management system that has legislation, we had guidelines, we had registration systems, we had publicity and education. Why do we still see problems? Do we not have enough publicity or promotion, or are people not doing the right thing? It is never easy to change the culture. The papers or having more safety officers or supervisors don't really help. If we can make use of technology to identify potential hazards and formulate targeted measures so as to make sure we are managing the risks, or making use of 4S to manage the sites, these would help, but these would not be the cure. If we do not consider the complexity of construction sites, background noise with simultaneous operations, it will still affect the effectiveness of the technologies. We have to be pragmatic when using technologies and make sure they are used effectively in construction sites. We also need to consider how the subcontracting arrangement works. This is a big part of the construction industry. If we can delineate clearly the roles and responsibilities of various stakeholders with concerted efforts, it should be effective in improving construction safety. We also need education and publicity. We need to tell them how important safety really is. We need to foster a safety culture. With continuous efforts, we should be able to move towards zero accident. President, I so submit speaking in support of Mr. Gary Zhang's original motion. Thank you. Mr. Benson Look. I thank Mr. Gary Zhang for proposing a motion and various members who have proposed amendments in 2024 according to LWB's figures. In 2023, the construction industry's number of industrial accidents, we had 3,097 cases, and in general, on average, we have 2,946 accidents, and we had 20 industrial fatalities on average every year. So from these figures, we have seen that the government has much to improve on various aspects. We have seen the government's efforts in making good use of technologies and improving safety management system, etc. But I have some suggestions. I see that the government has been promoting the use of smart technologies, including the use of 4S for the public works projects of value exceeding $30 million have already been using 4S. With the Construction Innovation and Technology Fund, it has really helped promote the use of 4S, and they have also increased funding for each applicant. I do appreciate that, but we have seen, unfortunately, recently, many construction companies facing financial difficulties. Some are on the brink of being closed down, and many of them are actually large construction companies. So it would hurt our progress in promoting the use of technologies. It will in turn affect the safety of construction workers. If necessary, there should be intervention. And in 2024, there is an organization that has been promoting safety, and only 1/6 of the construction companies participated in this scheme that would essentially track construction worker safety record, and the construction workers can take courses to get more points. So workers are eager to participate, but then there are still concerns where workers are worried about their records being tainted, or their companies are worried that their construction progress may be delayed. I think we should encourage those who have not participated in the scheme to join the scheme so that we can foster a safety culture and enhance awareness of frontline workers. So we should tell them that having this scheme won't really affect their work in any way. And we also have the green cards for construction workers. And workers will have to obtain these green cards before they can work in construction sites. However, there have been concerns. Right now, green card would only require a day of training. That is 7.5 hours of training. Is that really enough for one to have a full understanding of safety procedures in construction sites? Before I actually took the course myself, I saw that different courses had different quality of training. Some of the participants did not even understand Chinese. It could really affect how safe they can really be when working in construction sites. I urge the government to look into this closely to make sure construction workers have a proper understanding of safety measures before they work in construction sites. So that would not only protect themselves but also others. Thank you.
Dr. Chow Siu-hung. Thank you, President. According to the labor union's survey, last year there were 23 fatal accidents in the construction industry, causing 25 fatalities. The maximum penalty for the OSH offences have been enhanced to $10 million. Why don't we see a drop in the number of fatalities? During the second reading debate of the bill, I mentioned that the increase in penalty cannot prevent accidents from occurring entirely. True, the legislative framework provides a clear direction. However, we need to work on changing the culture in the trade. We need to work together. The Labor Department has to step up enforcement and inspection. Now, in November 2023, a working group was established to conduct snap inspection on new construction sites. In 3 months' time, more than 600 sites were inspected. More than 345 warnings were issued. It was a success. However, in February 2024, the Labour Department announced in a high-profile manner that the operation has ended. Now, without the deterrence brought by the SNAP inspection campaign, the industry has been less vigilant. I believe that the Labour Department should make regular SNAP inspection on construction sites to prevent any accidents from occurring. Now, to enhance the efficiency of the operation, the Labour Department must be well aware of the locations of high-risk construction sites. Now, in 2023, the Construction Industry Ordinance was amended so that small-scale work projects with a shorter duration, including those involving gondolas and scaffolding, these must be reported to the Labour Department so that the Labour Department can draw an inspection strategy. However, we don't see the real implementation of the system yet. I urge the government to introduce a bill to the Council to mandate early inspection of construction sites. Now, the Development Bureau introduced an amendments bill on the building ordinance to strengthen the power given to the building authority to gather evidence so as to establish the responsibility of the stakeholders. The building department can do the same. They can shorten the license validity period upon renewal by offending contractors. Now, the bill, there are still shortcomings in the bill. However, the bill will help enhance safety at construction sites. I still support it. I hope the government can speed up the legislative amendments process and also streamline the disciplinary process for offending parties. Now, many members have mentioned the building pass scheme, that is a point system awarded to construction sites. Now, many stakeholders have told me that they have concern about the pass scheme. Would there be any unfairness in practice? Will the penalty be unproportional to the offenses? Upon suspension, will it dent the income of the stakeholders and deprive them of a chance in future tenders? Now, I believe that the government must alleviate the concerns of the frontline workers. We must focus more on incentivizing the workers rather than punishing them. Otherwise, the building pass scheme will become a blame game for the workers. Mr. Kwok-fan. Thank you, President. I speak in support of the motion and the amendments. I first thank Mr. Gary ZHANG for moving this motion. I also thank the 7 members who represent the views of different sectors and stakeholders. Protecting workers' occupational health and safety, in particular the construction industry where fatality is high, is important. The life and health of workers is something that we must work on together as a society. The construction industry is a growth engine, but this is also the industry with the highest risk. It is one of the reasons why young blood are reluctant to join. Now, in 2022, a crane fell down and 2 young persons died. Unfortunately, last November, an 18-year-old escalator technician or lift technician died. It brought about immense pain to the family members. It also imposed a burden on society. Looking at the figures, with the concerted efforts of all parties, overall accidents dropped from 37,523 in 2023 to 29,456 in 2024. However, in terms of fatalities, over the past 5 years, there were still 20 cases per year. Just in the construction industry, excluding the year 2024, starting from 2019, in the next 5 years, there were 16, 18, 23, 12, and 20 fatalities each year. Last year, according to the FTU's calculation, there were 23 accidents with 25 dead. To break through this bottleneck, we need to work together to remove the barriers and take up our own responsibility and play our own roles to achieve better results. Now, the OSH Council would offer emergency relief to the victimized families. The FTU also helped the victimized family members to apply for compensation. I thank all the members here for stepping up to support family members of victims. They pay visits to construction sites and hospitals to help. However, the representatives of the FTUs have been rejected to visit by some authorities. Now, the Construction Industry Council and other stakeholders have been working with the Labor Department to provide training and organize seminars to improve safety. That is a platform for exchange. Now, 1 week ago, I had the pleasure to meet with the chairman of the Construction Industry Council. They have conducted a survey, the results of which has not been published yet. But the survey found that the number one reason for accidents is catching up with lost time. Now, everyone is saying that we need to pick up speed on everything. However, if we follow every step of the process diligently, it should be fine. But that's the ideal situation only. Project managers take a leading role in construction sites because they want to catch up with lost progress. They would ask the workers to ignore proper steps. Now, there is insufficient accountability for the middle management of construction sites. We need to face this head-on. Now, the OSH committee under the FTU has conducted a review on the OSH situation for the past year, last month. The main findings are that the government must legislate for CDM as soon as possible. We need to ensure that everyone is doing their part so as to foster a culture for safety. That's how we can reduce the number of deaths and accidents. Risk assessment is important. Things we learn in lessons are not enough. Every construction site is unique. So a dynamic risk assessment process is what we need to do. Thank you. Mr. Peter Siu. Thank you, President. I thank Mr. Gary ZHANG for moving the motion on enhancing regulation of the safety of construction works. The motion mentioned that we need to reform the regulatory system for construction works. That is the main point. On the 19th of April 2023, at this Council, we have passed the OSH legislative amendments raising the penalties to $10 million for the owners of construction sites. Back then, there was a lot of concerns in the business sector. Would it be sufficient to reduce the number of deaths and accidents? Well, data speaks louder than everyone. Now, according to a paper published by the government on the 25th of November last year, in 2019 there were 22, there were 21, year 2023. Before the legislation, there were 24 fatalities. Now, in the first half of the year 2023, there were 9, 2024, 11. The number is still high. I remember these were all discussed in the Council last year. Now, besides legislation, what's more important is on-site training and education for contractors and workers. And the Labor Department must enforce the law and impose the penalties. The previous director of the Labor Department, and Vincent, the official responsible, paid a visit to a construction site with me and issued 4 improvement notices and 5 warning notices, as well as some prosecutions. Now, this is good. Secretary, you need to encourage your staff to visit construction sites and issue penalties. By taking an example to visit construction sites yourself, it is setting an example for the safety officers. At the construction site, you can see whether the workers are wearing the personal protective equipment, whether there are any manholes unhoarded. You can only see that when you visit construction sites. Now, I don't know whether government officials can enter construction sites without an order, but you need to find a way to empower you to visit construction sites at any time so that construction site workers won't be sloppy at their work. I have told the government officials many times that you need to impose penalties on the workers themselves. They are the real stakeholders. Otherwise, they will all think this is a problem of the employers, but not many employers would be on site at all times. You need to let the workers know that without a safety harness, or if they do not make the work environment safe, they will be prosecuted instead of the employers. They will not be tolerated. Now, take the tower crane collapse at the Anderson site, for example. Even if the secretary is there, you don't have the expertise to identify the cause of the accident, for example, missing a bolt nut or so on. Once the authorized person has signed the name, that's it. Do we need some more steps and require the authorized persons to visit the sites before signing the names on the paper? I don't think the current regime is stringent enough. We need to reform it. Many members mentioned the application of technology. I very much agree that we need to adopt more technologies to monitor construction sites and reduce risk there. But that's not just for construction sites. We can apply technologies in other sectors as well. Mr. Dennis Leung mentioned that for work at heights, 2 workers should be assigned to do this. Well, that's okay if there is unlimited resources. If it is very risky, of course, 2 persons are needed. But if it is a simple job, that's not the case.
Dr. Siu-hung. Thank you, President. The construction industry is in a leading position in terms of the application of technology. We must set a regulation on the construction industry. The industry contributes greatly to the GDP, and it employs 300,000 workers. I support Mr. Gary Zhang's original motion and all of the amendments. According to a study conducted by the Hong Kong Construction Industry Employees General Union, there were altogether 26 fatalities in 2024, resulting in 28 deaths. From November to December last year, we've seen an increase in the number of fatal industrial accidents. 9 workers passed away. We've just entered 2024. And there have already been 2 fatal accidents, and some 10 workers were injured. I think that the focus of today's motion is about how we can rectify the problem. The construction industry is faced with difficult times given the economic downturn. Contractors, in order to win the tender, try their best to lower their price by cutting costs. As a result, the workers often have to rush to complete the projects. I think that the government should conduct surprise patrols and inspections often and adopt this zero-tolerance policy against non-compliance of regulations. Every stakeholders have their own responsibilities. The lowest bid principle, the workers ignoring the code of practice for the sake of convenience, and the lack of deterrence handed by the fines handed down by the courts, all these resulted in the rising number of accidents. Now, in terms of the low penalty and fine handed down by the court, since 2023, to cope with this issue, the government have amended the Occupational Safety and Occupational Health Ordinance 2023 and raising the penalty to $10 million. Last year, the court handed down the first judgment against the accident since the implementation of the ordinance, and the employer was only fined $50,000. This fine was definitely not deterrent enough. So I think that as the government has already amended the ordinance to enhance construction site safety, they must review the fine handed down by the court to make sure that reflects the gravity of the offense. This will send the right message to the industry, such that the purpose of the legislative amendment can be fulfilled. Lastly, I think that the government should promote the use of innovation and technology for the monitoring of construction sites. Currently, all large-scale public works projects must apply 4S, Smart Site Safety System. The system can effectively monitor the workers to see if they are wearing the right vest and equipment. But as far as I understand, the 4S is not that popular in the private market. Also, we have to make sure that the workers use the system. So I think that the government should mandate the use of 4S in private construction site. They should also research and develop new system to enhance monitoring of construction safety. Mr. Chairman Kwong. Thank you, President. Our community is saddened by fatal construction accidents that happened. I have handled similar cases. A father passed away because of construction accidents, and his two sons had difficult time growing up. So one accident is definitely one too many. The LESCO has worked on enhancing OSH. I think that the current, we have a lot of different pieces of legislation on OSH. It seems that is comprehensive enough, but given the large number of accidents that we've seen, we must question why we're still seeing it despite so many pieces of legislations and regulations. The OSH ordinance was enacted last year upon amendment, but in 2022 we had 17 fatal accidents, 23, 20, 2024, 12 accidents. So we see that despite the legislative amendment, the situation has not improved significantly. This shows that we cannot improve a protection on the workers by increasing the penalty. Instead, we must leverage on various stakeholders such as safety officers, workers themselves, and supervisors. We also should enhance training for our workers in order for us to enhance the safety level of construction site. Currently, the Labor Department already have this Factories and Industrial Undertaking Safety Management Regulation, OSH Ordinance, as well as a series of subsidiary legislation. As I mentioned just now, just by increasing the penalty and amending legislation, we will not be able to find the root of the issue. However, but given the higher compliance cost, the contractors will only try to cut costs even further. I have 3 suggestions so that we can enhance construction site safety. First, given the fatalities and injuries in recent years, we must cultivate the right OSH culture. I've already talked about the figures. 40% of the accidents is because workers fell from height or collapse of scaffolding. I know that we already have code of practice, guidelines, and legislations, but we're still seeing a lot of accidents. So I think that the government should revamp the code of practice for working at height. They should also ask the contractors, the safety officers, and the workers to verify that they are complying with the regulations before they start the work. They should remind the workers that they should make sure that they're working in a safe environment. Second, we must enhance training for safety officers at construction site. For every 100 workers, we have to hire 1 safety officer. But despite the number of safety officers we engage, we need to make sure that the training that we offer them is up to date. I see that some manufacturers have developed a smart site safety system. It can detect unsafe behavior at construction site in real time. I think that the CIC should encourage universities to develop more such system to make sure that there's no blind spots. We also are facing a manpower shortage issue. The average age of construction workers is 44 years old. 45% of them are aged over 55. So the aging problem is very serious. Construction work is a labor-intensive kind of job. We must minimize the number of accidents in order to attract more new blood. Mr. Chen Hanpan. President, people are often saddened when they hear about fatal industrial accident. There are different causes to industrial or construction accidents. We often used to focus on disqualification, suspension of licenses, handing down of penalty, asking supervisors to step up inspection. I do know that the government has done everything that they can. We have amended the legislation, we have 4S, we have handed down penalty. But still, we are seeing a large number of accidents. We must uncover the cause of the problem. Let's see how we can further improve the situation instead of just suspending the licenses of the contractors or workers. It's not easy for us to solve the issue. We need a new perspective, and I have a few suggestions. First of all, there are many details to the design of a building. If the design is too complicated, then it will be more difficult to build the building and the risk will increase. And the risk costs or implied for the workers will be increased as a result. It's great to have a beautiful design, but for public works projects, our design must be kept simple, and we must also take into account how complicated it is for the workers to complete the works. We should place the equipment and tools at a convenient place for our workers. The design of a construction site and the building is crucial to the safety of the workers. Second, workers' awareness. Some workers try to rush things and they lack the awareness. So we must remind the workers frequently, and more importantly, we must change the culture among workers so that they will not rush things. We must respect our workers, and their lives are also valuable. We must make sure that the work environment is safe enough. They are also responsible for their own health and life. We must change the culture. Subcontracting is another problem. The lowest tier contractors are often awarded very little, so I think that the government should be mindful of this. There shouldn't be too many tiers of contractors and subcontractors. Lastly, the technology is advancing very rapidly. Apart from 4S, is there any new technology that we can apply to enhance the safety of the construction site? Is there any device that we can place at the construction site to enhance safety? For construction sites that introduce technology that are effective, we should award more points to them. This will also vitalize the INT ecosystem while making our construction site safer. As I always say, we've done almost everything that we can, but we should perhaps focus on other areas as well. Apart from legislative amendment and penalty, we should work on other things to make sure that workers can work in a safe environment and that they can return home safely. Thank you.
Mr. Siu-hung. President, it will soon be Lunar New Year. And of course, we'll have family dinners, and we want the whole family there. In 2022, I was the chairman of the Bills Committee for the OSH legislation amendments. I remember one of the things we discussed then would be increasing the penalties to $10 million, whether it would actually lower the number of accidents happening. Now we have multiple members say that it is not very effective. I myself am not exactly happy about how it works at the moment because we still have 10 or to 20 fatal industrial accidents. But then I also think that it is too early to tell. We have many parts to this discussion. I think it is important to foster a safety culture. Punishment is the last resort. But let me say this. We need to think about who is the most responsible. I have recently heard something about organizational culture for the industry or for some companies. It's about how we can make people comply with something voluntarily. So say, President, you have strict rules and we have, therefore, good culture in the council. In a particular site, the main contractor or the owner or the principal engineer, of course, would have the largest responsibility. So for the APs and whatnot, if they are not there at the construction sites most of the time, it may be the case that some would argue they are not responsible, but they're paid the most. So they should be held responsible. Now for safety officers, they have the responsibility, but they don't really have the authority, so they can't really do much. So who should be responsible? Should we have an independent body? Maybe the Occupational Safety and Health Council can be engaged to have a safety officer deployed to the construction site to monitor the situation? Or should we focus on inspections? I remember before there was an audit report asking whether there were adequate number of inspections and were the operations held in close frequency at a period of time, but not so much at other times. And actually, I heard someone in the industry say someone would have prior notice of when a labor officer is going to come inspect the site, and some dozens of gentle reminders are issued for one to put on the protective equipment and whatnot. How can this happen? Inspections must be random and it should not be notified in advance in order to achieve the intended effect. I think the industry supports the use of CDM and design for safety. Why haven't we included such in legislation? We can be flexible with legislation. If you want to be more general, if we don't talk about this altogether, it is less likely that people will adopt such, and it would be more risky for workers. So it's about fostering a safety culture, really, to minimize the chance of industrial accidents so that we can actually have a whole family there for family dinner for Lunar New Year. I also hope that in this year we will have the lowest figure of industrial accidents on record so that everyone can return home safe and sound. Mr. Porte, I very much agree with what members said because they are experts in various areas. They have provided some suggestions as well. I will not repeat what they said. I have only 2 points to make. I think no matter what penalties or technologies you have, the core is with the people. Mr. Siu-hung has praised you in fostering a good culture in the council, and I agree to a certain extent, because if management personnel do not practice good management, the workers may not follow rules or even would have some sort of poor conduct where they would only do certain things when the site is about to be inspected. We have an aging population, we have an immigration problem, we have different issues really with manpower. But in 2024, October, there were 2 operations taken that involved some corruption in excavator training, and some forged qualifications were involved. And then there was another operation on electrical workers, electricians, licenses, their training. They didn't receive the requisite training before obtaining the qualifications, yet the qualifications were granted to them anyway. But it's not that easily found for lawyers, forged qualifications. For workers, it would be much easier to find out because you can tell right away that they are not as skilled and they would probably already have hurt themselves. I think compared to other major cities with high-rise buildings, I think we should really need to make a comparison between our figures and the rest of the places on the number of industrial accidents. Compared to places with low-rise buildings, however, our figures are definitely high. I think we should definitely do something about this. I'll leave it on the administration to decide on what to do. In July 2022, there was an incident. It's not necessarily related to the construction industry, but it shows something. That is the mirror concert incident at the Hong Kong Coliseum. A screen fell onto the stage. Why did I mention this? It is because there was a disconnection in the sense that the middle management was not practicing good management, and we have lost some of our talents through immigration. We do have other immigrants coming to Hong Kong to fill up the gap. But then if we lose people a little too quickly, if we lose the ones with experience, how can we make sure we have filled the gap with enough people with the right background, with the right expertise, with the right values? I think the government, if they take a stance of ignoring the problem, there will be more problems. So with importing labor, we need to make sure we train them properly. We use technologies and amend legislation. Apart from that, we need to make sure people actually have the right mindset. Because otherwise, no matter how much you increase the penalties or give them incentives, with the wrong mindset, they can't really do the right thing.
Does any other member wish to speak? Mr. Gary ZHANG, you may now speak on the amendments. Thank you, President. First of all, I give my heartfelt thanks to the 26 members who have spoken to elaborate on my motion. As many as 7 members have moved amendments on my motion, it shows how much importance members attach to construction site safety. On safety site management and other aspects, invaluable views were put forward. It has enriched my motion, as well as providing a clear direction on where we should go in terms of enhancing construction site safety. I think there is a consensus that we need to enhance safety regulation as well as enhancing the safety culture in construction industry. We need to delineate the responsibility clearly and enhance frontline workers' safety awareness. Dr. Wai-kwok, who represents the relevant sector, mentioned that the government must conduct regular review on the law. That aligns with my motion. In view of the ever-changing structure of the industries as well as the advancements in technologies, existing laws may not be sufficient to meet the needs of the modern construction industry. That's why through regular analysis and review, we can ensure the laws are still effective. Mr. Dennis LEUNG represents the labor sector. He mentioned that we need to set out the relevant liabilities and responsibilities as well as the roles played by relevant managerial position holders clearly. I agree. In large-scale projects, there may be a dozen layers between the employer and the frontline workers. We need to have a clear system to sort out the liabilities. I would like to respond to another veteran in the industry, Mr. Tony Tse. As he rightly pointed out, we have discussed this topic numerous times in recent years. The penalties have been enhanced. However, the situation has not improved. We need to have the right person to take responsibility, but that's different from having an effective system of regulation. I agree that the government should reform the safety regulatory system to delineate the responsibilities clearly. Now, Mr. Dennis Leung, Mr. Tony Jie, Mr. Wai-kwok, and Mr. Siu-hung also mentioned that we need to apply innovative technologies to enhance site safety. I fully agree. Various technologies were mentioned, for example, BIM, Building Information Modeling System, and also the 4S technology. These technologies will enhance construction sites' capability to issue advance warning and alert. I agree that we should follow this direction of applying more technologies. In terms of enhancing safety awareness and culture, members have put forward concrete views. Safety culture is not just something nice to have. It is a must-have. Building of a safety culture should go beyond construction sites to the managerial level. The managers of projects should promote design for safety from the design stage. We need to ensure that design for safety measures cover the entire life cycle of projects. Design for safety should be adopted as an important assessment criteria. We should learn from the experience in implementing the green building standard. We should incentivize consultants and owners to reduce work risk from the design stage. Through the joint efforts of the Council, the government, and the industry, I hope that we can establish a construction industry regulatory system with clear responsibility so that every construction site workers can work in a safe environment, so that the construction industry can continue to contribute to our economy while keeping its workers safe. Thank you.
Undersecretary for Development. President, first of all, I would like to thank Mr. Gary Zhang for proposing the motion and 7 other members for proposing amendments and other members for expressing their views on enhancing construction safety. Construction safety is indeed very important. As a major proponent of public works projects and an advocate for construction safety, the government has been working closely with different stakeholders to enhance construction safety. We will carefully consider the views of members so that we can do even better work in this area. I will share some information and give brief responses in several areas. Some members talked about making clear the responsibilities of different stakeholders. And I would say the administration agrees with that. The OSH legislation has already delineated to a certain extent the responsibilities of stakeholders. And we are currently consulting the stakeholders on potential legislative amendments, and that we are trying to enhance regulation of the building professionals and contractors, including the technically competent persons, authorized signatories, and technical directors to delineate their responsibilities better, and in the technical memorandum, we will give the details on the liability they may incur. And technological applications. As many members said, we have requested that public works projects with the value exceeding $30 million should fully adopt 4S. We have also been trying to promote the adoption of 4S in private developments. Since 1st of July 2024, the Buildings Department has imposed conditions on certain building works when granting the first approval or major revisions of superstructure plans of private development projects for building works with estimated costs exceeding $30 million and involving the use of mobile plants and tower cranes. Registered contractors are required to adopt relevant 4S alert systems. Apart from mandating certain requirements, we have also tried other ways to adopt the use of technologies such as 4S, the Development Bureau and the Construction Industry Council jointly launched the 4S labeling scheme to encourage the industry to make use of 4S. Right now, there are approximately 500 public and private works projects that have already been issued with the relevant labels. As for whether we will mandate the use of 4S for works projects with a value less than $30 million, but in general, these works are refurbishment works that are less risky, so we consider it more appropriate to review the situation, and we will try to subsidize contractors in making use of this. We are also encouraging various other technologies such as digital twin, BIM, etc. And we do see that many projects are now making use of BIM as well as digital twin technology and smart site management. We will also promote the wide adoption of drones or other robots that can climb on external walls. We will encourage public and private works projects to make good use of technologies, including 4S. In fact, the Construction Innovation and Technology Fund recently has increased the ceiling from $6 million to $7.5 million for applicants, and at least $1.5 million would have to be used on 4S. So with this financial incentive, hopefully more private operators would be making use of technologies to enhance construction safety. Some members also touch on design for safety, and in fact, since 2006, we have been promoting design for safety, and we have promulgated guidelines. In 2016, it has been updated. For works with a value exceeding $500 million, they need to implement design for safety. The Construction Industry Council in November 2022 issued some reference materials for design for safety. They have also launched a training course and they have also launched a pilot scheme on design for safety in 2024 to provide advice and assistance to developers. We will continue to work with the Construction Industry Council to promote design for safety. Some members said if there should be bonuses for construction companies with a good track record. And in fact, in 1996, we already have a pay-for-safety scheme. And we have some arrangements that are linked to the construction company's safety record. So say if there is no fatality or no industrial accident for a year, they will get more points, and the total amount given to them can be 1.7% of the contract sum. On scaffoldings, some members said we should ban the use of scaffoldings altogether, but then scaffoldings are helpful in some way. However, we do understand that there have been some accidents involving scaffolding, so we have been looking whether we can make use of metal scaffoldings instead in the new projects. We will continue to maintain close liaison with stakeholders on this. Some members also expressed concern about safety of imported labor. And let me share with you some information. After they have come to Hong Kong, they need to receive training and get a green card before they can work in the construction sites of Hong Kong. And whether we should link this to our tendering system. Let me say this. All along, we do not adopt a lowest bid wins approach. We would have a 40 to 50% points that would be linked to the performance record of companies, and 30% of such would be linked to safety performance. President, through the concerted efforts of the government and various stakeholders, we have seen construction safety improve, but of course, we can always do better. We will continue to work closely with the LWB and various stakeholders to enhance construction safety for the sustainable development of construction industry.
主席，
Secretary for Labor and Welfare. President, I once again thank Mr. Gary ZHANG for moving the motion and 7 members for moving their amendments, namely Mr. Louis Leung, Mr. Tony Che, Mr. Michael TIEN, Dr. Wai-kwok, Mr. Siu-hung, Mr. Kwok-fan, and Mr. Dennis LEUNG. There were altogether 27 members who have spoken on the motion. I thank them for giving all these invaluable comments and suggestions on how we can further raise OSH levels in Hong Kong. After listening to members yesterday and today, I can summarize members' views into a few categories. First, they have to do with raising the level of OSH in the construction sector. Second, we should hold stakeholders accountable. And third, members also talked about how we can strengthen OSH awareness or cultivating an OSH culture. Also, a lot of members talked about how we can use technology to enhance construction site safety. Let me give you a brief reply. First, on raising the level of OSH in the construction sector. Members' views are the same as that of the government. Raising the OSH level in the construction sector is the focus of the Labor Department. Over the years, the department have formulated multiple strategies in order to tackle the problem and improve site safety. The Labor Department has been conducting surprise inspections and mounting various operations to strengthen monitoring of new construction and high-risk construction sites to combat non-compliance. The LD initiated enforcement action against high-risk operation, conducted district-based patrol on RMAA works, as well as inspected and audited safety systems of large-scale new works project. Where necessary, special task force will be set up to take short-term and targeted enforcement action, as you may have noticed. The Labor Department also actively participates in the meeting of site safety management committees of large-scale new projects so that we can grasp the potential risks on site as early as possible and provide appropriate OSH advice to the site management. The Labor Department also provides participants with the latest safety reminders and important OSH messages to enhance site safety awareness and prevent accidents from happening. Now, in response to the views of the community, the Legislative Council passed the Occupational Safety and Occupational Health Legislation Miscellaneous Amendments Ordinance in early 2023. It raises the penalties for all occupational safety and health offenses and makes it possible to take out prosecution against serious work accidents as indictable offenses with a maximum fine of $10 million and a maximum term of imprisonment of 2 years. So as to enhance the deterrent effect of the OSH legislation and encourage the relevant stakeholders to pay more attention to preventive measures to safeguard OSH of their employees. Some members said that despite the raising of fine and imprisonment term upon legislative amendment, no obvious change was seen in the construction industry in terms of number of accidents and fatalities. We understand that we should not just rely on raising the penalty in order to solve the problem. Experience tells us that in order for us to solve OSH issue, we need to adopt a multi-pronged approach, and it takes time. So I think that this is a great platform that we have here to remind the industry that we should comply with all the regulations and ensure workers' safety. However, it is still necessary for us to raise the penalty because it sends the right message and a clear one to the community to let the relevant stakeholders know that if they don't comply with the regulation and make sure that the construction site is safe, they will be facing consequences. Now, apart from the principal legislation, the department has been updating various bylaws, codes, and guidelines, etc. In 2024, the department gazetted that the remaining 4 elements of the Factories and Industrial Undertakings Safety Management Regulation came into operation on the 29th of April 2024. They are the Job Hazards Analysis, Safety and Health Awareness, Accident Control and Elimination, and Occupational Health Assurance Program. And on the same day, we issued the amended Code of Practice to provide practical guidance for the construction industry to further enhance their compliance with the relevant requirements on construction site. Last year, the Labor Department also revised 2 codes of practice. One is about safety management on bamboo scaffolding, and the other is the Code of Practice for Safety and Health at Work in Confined Spaces. The Labor Department will continue to review the existing legislation from time to time. Second, on stakeholders' accountability. As the Undersecretary for Development said, the existing OSH legislation has already covered different stakeholders, including site occupiers, main contractors, subcontractors, employers, employees, safety practitioners, so on and so forth. Their liabilities and responsibilities are clearly spelled out under the legislation. There are general responsibilities, that is, the employer should offer a safe working environment for workers. I think that this is very important, and a lot of different stakeholders are covered. On the delineation of responsibilities, well, I have this view. We should not create a defense for management or employers by setting out the responsibilities too clearly, because everyone is basically responsible. If we set out the liabilities too clearly, then it could give the implication that for the responsibilities that are not set out, the relevant stakeholders should not be held accountable. Some stakeholders ask us to set out the responsibilities clearly. However, construction site and work process are very complicated. We should have this awareness that everyone is responsible and accountable for creating a safe working environment. So my view is that the current legislation is clear enough. Through different practical guides and codes of practice, we want to give advice to workers and employers, and we will continue to work with the industry and communicate with them in an open and frank manner in order for us to enhance the OSH. The members are concerned about the responsibilities of the site manager, project managers, supervisors, and relevant parties. That's not true. We also prosecute the middle management, in fact. If you look at our prosecution numbers, the percentage of workers that have been prosecuted has been increasing. We're not just penalizing the employers or contractors. If the workers are the reason why there was an accident, we will also hold them accountable. I completely agree with what some members said, that we should enhance the OSH awareness. Safety, at the end of the day, is a kind of a culture or a habit. A lot of members said that workers try to rush things and for the sake of convenience, ignore some of the safety requirements. But I think that this is a question of a priority. Why did some workers risk their life at construction site? I think that in order to rectify this issue, we must create a safety culture. If the workers are brave enough to tell their employers about the safety hazards, then we can minimize the number of accidents. If all the workers wear all the safety equipment, then no accident would happen when they fall. So I think that accident is a kind of concept. We cannot completely avoid it. But when that happens, the consequence can be completely different, depending on whether the workers have this OSH awareness. Together with the Construction Industry Council and the media, we have created a number of short videos, and we have also conducted publicity and promotion on our webpage, mobile application, emails, newspapers, so on and so forth. We want to get the message to our targets that are the workers. We often try to disseminate OSX messages through the channels that the workers have access to. We sometimes try to also send the message to students because sometimes it's more effective for the sons and the daughters of the workers to tell their parents about OSX messages. Now, in terms of training, the Labor Department have continued to optimize the mandatory safety training courses in light of the updated green card course content and the code of practice for bamboo scaffolding safety. And by the end of November, we actually refined the confined space training course so as to ensure that it closely aligned with the actual needs of the trainees and enhance workers' understanding of the risk. On the training of safety officers, the Labor Department will carefully scrutinize all applicants for registration as safety officers to ensure that they possess adequate qualifications, not less than 1 year's practical working experience in OSH, and competency in discharging their duties before they can be registered. Registrants are also required to complete not less than 100 hours of continuing education within every 4 years in order to keep their registration. On enhancing construction site safety through technology, well, with rapid technological advancement, technology can definitely help the industry enhance work's quality and efficiency to improve site safety. The Labor Department will continue to maintain close liaison with the Development Bureau to promote the use of innovative technologies in the industry. The Undersecretary for Development have already talked about 4S. I will not repeat it. The Labor Department and the OSH Council will coordinate the first, OSH Innovation and Technology Expo in March 2024 to introduce and showcase innovative solutions, products, and technologies in OSH. At the same time, the Labor Department will provide advice on OSH legislation to facilitate the introduction and the use of technological products developed by the industry. On the other hand, the Labor Department will start taking aerial photos by drone later this year, and to use the images collected to produce three-dimensional photorealistic models of the images to aid OSH inspections, evidence collection, and law enforcement action. However, at present, technology is mainly used to assist in monitoring the progress and safety of construction sites. To minimize safety risk at construction site, as a lot of members said, we cannot solely rely on technology. If you don't change people's habits and culture, then it may imply over-reliance on technology. Technology is only here to assist us. Technology will make things easier for us, but we also should raise people's awareness. And that's the principle that I abide by. President, in terms of publicity, promotion, training, and technological application, the Labor Department will continue our efforts in order to minimize accidents. Finally, I'd like to stress that the government is committed to raising the OSH standards of the construction industry. But our efforts alone are not enough. Solving the construction safety problem is a shared responsibility of different stakeholders. Here, I call on all sectors to join hand with the government to make concerted efforts and commitments to change the OSH culture to create a safer working environment for workers. President also submit.
I now call upon Mr. Louis LOONG to move an amendment. President, I move my amendment. I propose the question to you that Mr. Louis LOONG's amendment be passed. With those in favor, please raise their hands. Mr. Paul Jie claims a division. To play safe, I declare my interest. I am a non-executive director of a construction industry of a listed company. It's not a claim of division. With those in favor, please raise their hands. Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of each of the two groups of members present. I declare the amendment passed. Mr. Tony Jie, as an amendment is passed, you may move your further amendment. President, I move my further amendment. I propose the question to you that Mr. Tony Jie's further amendment be passed. With those in favor, please raise their hands. Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of each of the two groups of members present. I declare the amendment passed. Mr. Michael TIEN, as amendments are passed, you may move your further amendments. President, I move my further amendment. I propose the question to you that Mr. Michael TIEN's further amendment be passed. With those in favor, please raise their hands. Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of each of the two groups of members present. I declare the amendments passed. Mr. Edward Lau, as amendments are passed, you may move your further amendment. President, I move my further amendment. I propose the question to you that Mr. Edward Lau's further amendment be passed. With those in favor, please raise their hands. Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of each of the two groups of members present. I declare the amendments passed. Mr. Dennis Leung, as amendments are passed, you may move your further amendment. President, I move my further amendment. I propose the question to you that Mr. Dennis Leung's further amendment be passed. With those in favor, please raise their hands. Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of each of the two groups of members present. I declare the amendment passed. Dr. Wai-kwok, as amendments are passed, you may move your further amendments. President, I move my further amendment. I propose the question to you that Dr. Wai-kwok's further amendments be passed. With those in favor, please raise their hands. Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of each of the two groups of members present. I declare the amendments passed. Mr. Chen Siu-hung, as amendments are passed, you may move your further amendment. President, I move my further amendment. I propose the question to you that Mr. Chen Siu-hung's further amendment be passed. With those in favor, please raise their hands. Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of each of the two groups of members present. I declare the amendment passed. Mr. Gary ZHANG, you still have 3 minutes to reply that the debate will come to a close. Mr. Gary ZHANG. Thank you, President. With my last few minutes, I would like to share my own experience. I was a civil engineering graduate. My first job was at a construction site. I work at a huge construction site, and I was responsible for just a tiny part of it. But I was very nervous as I was a fresh graduate. Every day I was worried whether an accident would happen on my watch. So I inspected every high-risk procedure myself. Even when I was on leave, I would check photos sent to me by the foreman, and I would only breath a sigh of relief when the day is closed. Now, even if I was not so careful about the operation of the construction site, if anything happened, I would not be held accountable by the law, according to my experience. So that's my own story. Every year, the construction industry earned a revenue of some $250 billion, but there are some 24 deaths per year. So in other words, there would be one death per $100 billion. Now, if the government comes to the council saying that the price tag for a $50 billion project is 3 deaths, I believe no one would approve it, because no project worth the loss of life. I think it's this time for us to change. I urge members to support the amended motion. Thank you. And I put the question to you that Mr. Gary Zhang's motion, as amended by Mr. Louis LEUNG, Mr. Tony Jie, Mr. Michael TIEN, Mr. Edward Lau, Mr. Dennis LEUNG, Dr. Wai-kwok, and Mr. Chen Siu-hung be passed. If those in favor, please raise their hands. Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of each of the 2 groups of members present. I declare the motion as amended passed. Members, today is the last council before the Chinese New Year. Allow me to give you my Chinese New Year blessing. I hope Hong Kong will be as flexible and prosperous as a snake in the new year. I hope every member of public in the Hong Kong have good luck and health. I now adjourn the council until 11 a.m. on Wednesday, 12th of February 2025.